is the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country.
Donald Trump speaks for the first time after his arraignment. What comes next for the former president? An 18-year-old accused of 2 murders is arrested at his city school. How the family of one of the victims is fighting to put young people on the right path. Something good from something bad. A push from Marylanders to get illegal guns off the streets. We question why state leaders didn't do more to hold offenders accountable. The suspect in the Annapolis mass shooting has his first day in court. The defense makes a stunning claim as victims' families fight for justice.
We can't keep losing, our loved ones like this.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
I had every right to have these documents.
Former President Donald Trump defends himself against federal charges at a campaign fundraiser and rally in New Jersey. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. That rally was less than 8 hours after Trump entered not guilty pleas to 37 federal charges during an arraignment at a federal courthouse in Miami today. And those charges stem from classified documents uncovered at Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. The former president just wrapped up a fundraiser tonight.
Whatever documents the president decides to take with him, he has the right to do so. It's an absolute right. This is the law. And that is something that people have now seen, and it couldn't be more clear.
It's an historic day in court as Trump becomes the first former U.S. president to be arrested.
And the first to be arraigned and facing federal charges. Here's how the day unfolded. The former president surrendered at a Miami courthouse around 2 o'clock this afternoon. He was not handcuffed and did not have a mugshot taken.
Again, he pled not guilty to 37 charges, including obstruction of justice, allegedly refusing to return the documents despite requests from federal officials, and destroying records related to the investigation. Before returning to New Jersey, he made a campaign-style stop at a cafe in South Florida, praying with his supporters, shaking hands, and taking pictures. We'll have more on the arraignment coming up. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar will join us live at 10:15 with a look at the former president's defense. We'll also take a look at how Republicans challenging Trump are reacting to the events. An 18-year-old is arrested and charged with murder and shootings in March. 2 people were killed. A total of 8 were shot.
Jabri Griffith, a student at Dunbar High School, arrested in his school parking lot last week, according to Baltimore police. Officers say they found a loaded gun in his car, the same type of weapon used at both shooting sites in March. And the shocking arrests do bring back painful memories for those close to the victims, including the family of a local boxer. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live right now with more on this investigation. Keith?
Well, Kai, the young suspect in this case is behind bars at this hour, charged with 2 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. And tonight, for one family, the teen's arrest brings with it some consolation. At the Lightning Quick Fit Gym in Mount Vernon, Jewel Johnson says her phone has not stopped ringing. Word has spread. Another arrest in the killing of gym owner and boxer Ernest Hall. Johnson is the mother of Hall's daughter, who now owns the gym. Reaction now to the arrest of her father's alleged killer.
It's really emotional. My daughter has to relive it. She sees the social media posts and stuff like that. And to think that someone in her age range is who took her dad away, it's very disturbing.
Police have arrested 18-year-old Jabri Griffith, a senior at Dunbar High School in Baltimore City. The student accused in the shooting that killed Hall and injured 5 others, as well as a homicide that happened just hours later. Newly obtained court documents detail how investigators connected Griffith to 2 deadly shootings, including the one involving Hall, March 23rd, a date also listed as a school day. Just minutes after midnight that date, Hall was among 6 people shot on Emerson Avenue in West Baltimore. 5 of the victims in their teens or early 20s survived. But 33-year-old Hall, who had reportedly just stopped at the store, was killed. Police arrested Griffith June 6th in connection with the shooting, caught him at Dunbar in the school's parking lot.
It's the worst, but it's, you know, justice is being served, so it feels a little good.
But what's bad about it, she says, is yet another juvenile accused of a violent crime. Now, 18-year-old Griffith, the second suspect, arrested in connection to Hall's murder. In April, police also arrested a 15-year-old boy who they believe was also involved in the homicide. Meanwhile, back at the gym,
Ernest started a movement called Guns Down, Gloves Up. And that's kind of something that I want to keep going to try to get the kids off the streets and in the gyms.
well, police announcing an arrest in those shootings, but so far, no word of a motive in those crimes. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Just over a year ago, a teen was shot outside of Dunbar High School during school hours. Guns have been confiscated from at least 13 students in Baltimore City schools this year. In one of those incidents in March, a 15-year-old was arrested after running into Carver Vocational School. Police say the young suspect had a loaded gun and had carjacked an Uber driver shortly before that. That incident prompted concerns about tracking who's coming into the building while school is in session.
And the man accused of killing 3 people and wounding 3 others in Annapolis Sunday night had his first virtual court hearing today. 43-year-old Charles Smith was denied bail. He'll now remain in custody. That shooting allegedly stemming from a dispute over parking on the street. The charging documents reveal investigators believe Smith used 2 guns in the shootings. And victims' families saying they want swift justice.
We will not stop until this is, reported as a hate crime. What happened here is not, an act of PTSD. This is a murder. This was a murder that was committed.
This was an unprovoked attack. It was undeserved, and they're absolutely heartbroken and shattered.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has more from the victims' families and the suspect's defense argument. That's coming up at 10:30.
The Annapolis shooting reignited calls for tougher gun laws in Maryland. Leaders say more restrictions on high-powered weapons could stop these types of mass shootings from happening.
This is not a Second Amendment issue. We have far too many high-powered weapons that are in the hands of people with rage, mental illness.
When you turn violent and you have access to guns, this is the kind of thing that happens.
This pain is accompanied by purpose. Knowing that in response, we will choose to do more than give hearts and thoughts and prayers.
Well, they stopped short of calling for stricter punishments for firearm offenders. Tonight, Marylanders appear to want some accountability. A new Gonzales poll shows an overwhelming support of felony charges when it comes to stolen guns. But even with public backing, some argue lawmakers didn't go far enough to address violence prevention when they had the opportunity. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is live right now with the polling data and what some are calling a missed opportunity. Jeff?
That's right. When it comes to gun crimes, it appears Marylanders' tolerance could be running thin and their patience could be running out. Just hours after 3 people were gunned down in an Annapolis neighborhood, the governor stepped out.
We will refuse to be apathetic in the face of horror.
Between his condolences came a promise for action.
We will choose the path of safety and the path of solutions on behalf of all Marylanders who stand united with Annapolis today.
The governor's words seem all too similar to what the majority of Marylanders are saying. A new Gonzales poll found that the vast majority of Marylanders believe possession of a stolen firearm in this state should be a felony.
About 90% of Marylanders, whether they're black or white or male or female or young or old or progressive or conservative, agree that the possession of a stolen firearm should be a felony.
I think the governor sets the agenda on this.
In Annapolis this year, lawmakers passed legislation which increases fees for those owning guns and further restricts where firearms can be carried. But political analyst John Deedy says lawmakers have hardly gone far enough.
The question that's always going to be asked is, well, what's your plan to stop this? And I think that he's going to have to start to think about a legislative agenda to deal directly with these gun crimes.
We refuse to say that these problems are too big or too tough to solve.
Deedy says the next legislative session could prove to be a turning point for the governor as he attempts to get tough on a problem no one can seem to stop.
It's hard to find legislation to address stupidity.
Well, that same poll also asked Marylanders if the state is moving in the right direction. 54% of Marylanders say yes, 28% say no. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. In response to that polling data, the Maryland House Republican Caucus released a statement calling for stricter gun laws. The state GOP saying they've pushed forward proposals that would make illegal gun ownership a felony on multiple occasions, but it has failed to pass each time. The Republicans, citing the data, are calling on Democrats to accept the plans in hopes of cracking down on gun crime. Now, the only bill targeting criminals this past legislative session made the maximum penalty for illegally possessing a firearm uniform, raising the longest misdemeanor sentence up to 5 years for those over the age of 21. Meanwhile, the NRA is suing over Senate Bill 1. Jeff mentioned the Gun Safety Act of 2023, which restricts where legal wear and carry permit holders can bring a gun. That is scheduled to take effect October 1st, but a similar law in New Jersey was blocked by the courts while being fought there.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the state legislature is doing enough to tackle illegal guns? So far, 77% of people who voted say no. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
All right, a good looking overnight before the potential of rain moves back in once again for tomorrow. Temperatures at about 70 at BWI. Aberdeen right now getting some extra clouds at 70 and 70 degrees at Easton and also at Westminster. Now, as we head into the morning commute, notice the clouds accruing. 61 degrees at 6 a.m., 62 at 7. And we stay in the 60s with the clouds and maybe a shower chance tomorrow morning, but better rain chances midday and afternoon. I'll let you know hour by hour how that looks on the latest computer models in a couple of minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, continuing coverage of former President Trump's first federal court appearance. What comes next in the criminal proceedings as the presidential campaign gets underway? New polling on Governor Wes Moore's first 6 months on the job, where Marylanders stand and how it compares to his predecessor. Then coming up at 10:30 tonight, the mayor's pick for the next police commissioner of Baltimore may not qualify for the promotion as he currently stands. We press Mayor Brandon Scott on the intent to follow city code.
I'm hoping that it turns out that he's innocent and he gets reelected.
And we want an honest guy in office. We don't want somebody who's, pulling stuff like this.
With all the crime and everything that's going on, the economy, everything in this country, why are they only focused on him?
Well, mixed reaction to an historic day in America. Former President Donald Trump federally arraigned in a Florida court. It's the first time a former president has been arraigned. The former president didn't stay in Florida long, already making his way to New Jersey to speak at a campaign fundraiser.
National correspondent Atra Al-Nashar following all of these developments throughout the day and joins us live from our Capitol Hill bureau with the latest after we heard from the former president just this evening. Atra?
Yeah, good evening, Kai and Maxine. We just saw an angry former President Trump not pull any punches during a fundraiser speech just hours after facing that federal judge.
Today we witnessed the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country.
Prosecutors confident they have the evidence.
So far, 92% of people who voted say no. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. Just click on the Pulse tab. A Baltimore resident at risk of losing her home is breathing a sigh of relief tonight after city oversight nearly led to foreclosure. Ancilla Crawford says she was on the hook for thousands of dollars from the city stemming from an overgrown lawn citation. The only catch is she doesn't have a lawn. It was actually meant for the vacant home across the street. The city threatened to foreclose her home before eventually admitting the mistake. Former prosecutor Thiru Vignarajah is acting as her advocate. They're now urging the city to begin conducting visual inspections before auctioning off a home that's clearly occupied.
If you're going to have this draconian program in place, at least implement it in a humane and common sense way.
I never expected it to happen to me, so if it was so easy to happen to me, I'm sure it's probably happening in other places.
Well, Fox 45 News reached out to the mayor's office asking if visual inspections should be added to the city's tax sale protocol. So far, we have not heard back.
Baltimore County Schools has formally approved Dr. Miriam Yarbrough as its next superintendent. Yarbrough was initially appointed May 16th, pending an agreement on her contract terms and approval by the state superintendent of schools. She served as deputy superintendent of Baltimore County Schools for 2 years before taking the full-time job.
Also within Baltimore County Schools, County Executive Johnny Olszewski announcing $80 million in state grants going to key construction projects. That includes $26 million for a new Lansdowne High School, $20 million for a new Towson High School, and $25 million for 2 new elementary schools. The investment comes after the county already set aside more than $200 million in its budget to support new school projects.
Starting tomorrow and running through August 25th, the Maryland Department of Education will provide free meals for children as part of the 2023 Summer Food Service Program. Anyone under 18 can pick up free lunch at participating school sites Monday through Thursday. Some locations offer Friday pickup as well. No registration or IDs is required. More information on participating locations is available at mdsummermeals.org.
Gun violence on the decline in Baltimore City, but other offenses are picking up. Fox 45 News pushes city leaders on Baltimore's crime response.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg at the I-95 collapse site in Philadelphia. The new steps taken today to keep drivers safe.
And today up to 83, sunshine, dry, but that may not be the case by tomorrow. Take a look as we head through the morning rush. Notice the rain north and west initially overnight, but by about 4:45, 5 o'clock, starting to move in toward Westminster and Frederick through about 7 a.m. And by lunchtime, it looks like it starts moving into Baltimore. I'm going to let you know if it's going to be around for the p.m. commute and how much warmer and drier things could get for the weekend, or at least part of it. That's about Weather Authority forecast.
Emergency crews in Philadelphia are demolishing southbound lanes of I-95 at the site of Sunday's bridge collapse. The northbound lanes went down Sunday night, and state officials say the southbound lanes face enough of an impact where they won't support the traffic overhead. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg visited that site today, saying the agency will provide every necessary resource to assess the damage and start repairs. He says the collapse could have long-term implications on America's domestic shipping, as that highway typically carries about 160,000 vehicles a day.
Celebrated novelist Cormac McCarthy has died at his home in New Mexico, according to his publisher. The author was known for works such as No Country for Old Men and Blood Meridian. He won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 2007. His publisher says he died of natural causes. McCarthy was 89 years old.
Ahead at 10:30, the Annapolis mass shooting suspect has his first day in court, his possible defense, and why victims' families say they're not satisfied.
The Baltimore Police Department in the middle of major transition. Why the man tapped to lead the department may not actually be eligible for the job. We're following three big stories tonight at 10:30. The man suspected in Sunday night's mass shooting in Annapolis has his first court hearing. The defense's legal team is mounting as victims' families share their pain and frustration with prosecutors outside the courtroom.
Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott touts success in Baltimore's crime fight as gun violence is down, but Fox 45 News pushes the mayor on other crimes rising across the city.
And questions about acting BPD Commissioner Rich Worley's prerequisites for the job, as he currently does not live in Baltimore City. We begin right there. According to Baltimore's charter, anyone who reports directly to the mayor needs to live in Baltimore City and be a registered voter. Mayor Scott says that Worley's family is looking to buy a house in Baltimore, but Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pressed the mayor on whether Worley has signed a required letter of intent.
When will he sign his letter of intent to move to Baltimore?
So he's acting as you know, in an acting capacity. As we go through the period where he goes through the formal nomination process, he will be moving to the city.
Did that mean that he was violating the charter when he was appointed as deputy commissioner, because he had to live in the city then as well?
Mackenzie, the commissioner will be following and abiding by all rules as he's always had, and we're going to make sure he moves here. He's a Baltimorean. He lived in the city as a district commander. He lived in the city as a colonel. He'll live in the city as a commissioner.
The city charter also revealed Worley should have lived in Baltimore as deputy BPD commissioner, as Mackenzie questioned the mayor about. In theory, Worley would have had to sign a letter of intent last year when he was promoted to deputy commissioner. We've asked BPD about this too, but they have not responded. As for Worley's confirmation, when that will happen, the mayor says he will bring that to the council once a budget is passed. Those budget meetings are set for tomorrow.
As the police department transitions into Worley's leadership, Mayor Brandon Scott is touting the city's efforts to reduce crime.
But the numbers may tell another story. Mackenzie Frost is looking into the crime statistics, says many Baltimore residents remain on edge.
Homicides and non-fatal shootings are down compared to this time last year. But remember, 2022 was an extraordinarily violent year, and not everyone says this is the right time to start touting the efforts as a success. Over the weekend in Baltimore, 3 people were killed, 2 others shot but survived. To date, 125 people have been killed in Baltimore's streets, 271 others scarred forever from a shooting they survived, all because someone decided to pull the trigger of a gun. The statistics show a trend in the right direction for Charm City, and Mayor Brandon Scott quick to highlight the decrease.
These efforts that are led, that work that these women and men do each and every day on the streets of Baltimore, had contributed to a 19% reduction in homicides and an 8% reduction in non-fatal shootings, respectively, year over year.
A deeper dive into the data shows crime overall is not going in the right direction, though. According to BPD data, as of May 27th, total Part 1 crime up 20% compared to this time last year. That includes robberies, carjackings, rapes, auto thefts, and more. Property crime up 33% from 2022. Total violent crime is down 4%, but that statistic does not include common assault, which is up 13%. Those numbers top of mind for some council members during Baltimore Police Department's budget hearing.
There's still very high crime and high violent areas.
Within the police department, what needs to shift in order to reduce the likelihood that someone's going to use a gun?
I just don't see the success.
With the official first day of summer yet to arrive,
we do tend to see a pretty significant increase of violence in the warm weather months generally.
The violence is likely going to rise in the coming months. People living in the community acutely aware of the crime crisis.
Don't feel safe in Baltimore.
And some argue leaders are touting their success too early.
I want them to say the work is not over, the work continues, we are deploying our resources in a way that we think is making a difference, but it is too early for us to celebrate anything because there are still people dying and there are still people being shot.
Especially in a city surpassing 300 homicides for the last 8 straight years. Mayor Scott continues to say that his holistic approach is driving down the violence, but when looking at all of the crimes, his efforts don't seem to be working. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
More results are in from today's Gonzales poll assessing the top priorities for Marylanders and where they stand on key issues. So let's take a glimpse at the governor's approval rating in the first Gonzales poll since he took office. So far, 55% of respondents approve of Governor Wes Moore, while 27% disapprove. It is a big gap from former Governor Larry Hogan's final approval in office with a 77% approval rating. Pollster Patrick Gonzales says the numbers are encouraging for Governor Moore.
I just think it's a carryover from the impressive job he did during the campaign to become elected governor. And I think people are kind of reflecting their attitudes of what happened with his first session. So if I were Governor Moore, I would be fairly encouraged by these numbers.
The poll also asked how Marylanders feel about one of Moore's key environmental policies, with more than 60% of those who responded saying they would be against an outright ban on the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. To see our full interview with Patrick Gonzales and more poll results, you can head right now to foxbaltimore.com.
We're following the devastating story out of Annapolis. 3 people were killed and 3 others were shot Sunday night, allegedly over a parking dispute.
The suspect, 43-year-old Charles Smith, had a virtual court appearance today. Fox 45 News also heard from victims' families and got a glimpse at the suspect's possible mental health defense. Amy Simpson explains.
Outside of court today.
This was an unprovoked attack.
Reactions to a mass shooting on the front lawn of an Annapolis home Sunday night, which left 3 dead and injured 3 others.
We can't keep losing, our loved ones like this, not a week before Father's Day.
Online fundraising pages sharing a glimpse at those victims and the families they leave behind. One GoFundMe says it's for funeral expenses for the father and son killed, Nicholas and Mario Morales.
Mario's father is a local successful landscaper. We've known him as part of the community here in Annapolis for 20 years. Mario's mother has lived on the same street on Paddington Place for 20 years. They're part of our community.
The fundraiser says Nicholas leaves behind a wife, plus 10 kids and grandkids. His son Mario, a dad of 3, with a baby on the way. Another GoFundMe, collecting donations for a son of the 3rd victim, Christian Segovia. Segovia's older sister speaking with reporters today.
Anyone that knew him loved him. He was goofy, he was great. He's a big teddy bear, he was a father.
43-year-old Charles Smith appeared virtually inside a courtroom today. His defense attorney told the judge Smith is single, has no kids, lives with his parents, and is currently unemployed looking for a job. That lawyer also told the courtroom Smith served in the military and now suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder related to his time in Afghanistan. Now allegedly prescribed 5 medications. Without those meds for the last 2 days, his lawyer said. An attorney for family of the father and son killed reacting to revelations from inside the courtroom.
Anytime one hears that someone is suffering from PTSD, especially after serving our country, that's significant and it's not a small issue. However, we don't think it in any way excuses his behavior or the damage that he's done.
Neighbors said it was a birthday party for one of the victim's sons on Sunday night. Charging documents reveal a parking dispute led to a fight. Smith pulled out a gun and allegedly stood over one of the victims, firing multiple times. Court filings also say Smith went back inside his house, retrieved a rifle, and continued shooting through a window as people tried to help the victims. Family of the men killed now shattered by what they reportedly witnessed.
They were present for it. I don't want to go into the details of what I've heard, but I can tell you it's awful what they've experienced. I do know that they begged him to stop shooting.
After the gunfire, emotions and heartbreak were palpable in what police and officials called a quiet middle-class neighborhood. That heartbreak now turning to the search for justice.
We will not stop until this is, reported as a hate crime. What happened here is not, an act of PTSD. This is a murder. This was a murder that was committed.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, Smith is scheduled to be back in court for a preliminary hearing July 12th. Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman joined us on Fox 45 Morning News discussing some of the violence intervention efforts in place across the county.
We've got this gun violence intervention team that we created after the Capitol Gazette shooting. Remember, that was 5 years ago, coming up in 2 weeks. And we've been sort of picking around the edges, trying to do the things that we can legally do as a county. We're not authorized to take guns off the street or to decide what the rules are about who can have guns. That happens at the higher levels of government.
Fox 45 News asked Pittman if his program was modeled off violence intervention efforts in Baltimore. He says the county is looking nationwide for solutions, not just in Baltimore. Howard County police are investigating a deadly 3-car crash last night near Locust Park in Columbia. Police say a truck driver lost control of his F-250 along Tamara Drive near the Locust Park Pool and Courts. The truck ran into oncoming traffic, hitting 2 cars. The driver was arrested and charged with driving under the influence. One of the other drivers, 68-year-old Karen Battle, was taken to the hospital where she later died. 2 others were taken to shock trauma and have since been released from the hospital.
Let's take a look right now at the Fox 45 quad box or Fox box on the top left. A divide in Laramie County, Wyoming schools. Parents can opt children out of having access to certain library text, but some parents at a recent school board meeting demanded opt-in. Laramie, Wyoming is where Matthew Shepard was killed years ago. That's where kids would need permission from parents for all books. There's no indication it will change the rules.
Top right, Starbucks and its workers union are clashing over whether or not the company is discouraging pride decorations. The union took to Twitter to claim the chain is blocking decorations. A spokesperson for the company says that's not the case, and the business, quote, unwaveringly supports the LGBTQIA community.
On the bottom left, the Labor Department reports inflation has fallen, prices just 4% higher this past May compared to a year ago. This still is twice as high as the Federal Reserve's goal.
And bottom right, Senator Chuck Grassley says an FBI document notes a Ukrainian business executive who claims to have paid the Bidens millions of dollars for policy influence has recordings of more than a dozen conversations between either then Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Members of Congress have only been able to view redacted FBI documents and have not listened to recordings. It's not clear if the FBI has a hold of those tapes. Still ahead, product recalls are keeping items off shelves, but not out of your home. How some markets are skirting the system and what's being done to stop them.
And a look at the planner for tomorrow. A different look to things. We've got temperatures in the low 80s once again. Made it to 83 today, 81 tomorrow. But there are your showers during the lunchtime and early afternoon hours. Let you know if you're going to have any risks of thunderstorms, too. It's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.